Well, we talked yesterday how quickly the governor of Hiroshima,
not the mayor,
how quickly the governor became had the idea within a month, or was talking about making this a tourist centre and a memorial to eternal peace. Then this gets caught up very quickly in a kind of global public memory sphere. Now, maybe we can
post-war global.
And it gets caught up with notions of atomic peace, of atomic power. It's both a protest site later, but also for a while part of this whole kind of push for the wonders of this modernity and atomic peace.
And because that was so vivid in the 1950s, it's the extreme destruction of the two world wars and the real threat to the humanity that posed. And so this utopian ideal to rebuild international peace structures and live in a much more stable international environment. And so this gets folded into that much bigger landscape at a time when, obviously, the Cold War was going on, and you had rocket technologies, and you had the space race, which was emerging at that time, and then of course you had the threat of nuclear destruction. And so the real quest to make atomic power and nuclear power a peaceful technology. So in 1958, the first World's Fair after the Second World War took place in Brussels, and the key iconic structure was the atomium on the site. And the theme of the conference, the World's Fair, was atomic power for peace. So a number of countries brought their early nuclear power technologies to come and display at the thing. So here happened
Which year was that?
That was 58.
58,
and that happened, and there was a reconstruction expo right here at the same time, which was also about atomic atoms for peace. Was the sort of, I think it was a subheading. So there was this, exactly as you said, there's an international, transnational shared language of how we turn this type of destructive power into something that was much more productive as an energy resource, and obviously for peaceful purposes.
And this is all happening before, as I said yesterday, before witnesses are really coming to the forefront.
So state-driven.
Yes, and so before the personalised suffering of of those who survived has become part of the public consciousness, there is this state-led and international-led representation of this site. It's almost like the symbolic centre of that atomic peace.
So how do the survivors come into the picture?
Well, as far as I'm aware, and I'm still learning more about this, but as far as I'm aware, and this is again Swigenberg's fantastic work on this, I mean, he argues this is part of a wider global process in which Holocaust survivors are coming into prominence through the Eichmann trials in the Eichmann trial in the early 1960s. People are seeing these voices, and they're coming out of this sort of almost, in Hiroshima's case, this period of mixture between shame and silence, and then speaking forth. And that's where the hero-victim trope in this memory world starts to emerge, and then things start to shift. And we are very aware, I mean, here now, and this is something else I wanted to ask you about, we're very aware of almost this, I mentioned it yesterday, the sacred nature of this space, the way, the peaceful nature, the way this has been designed as a separate part in the city, out of the city.
But in the city, but out of the city.
Yeah, so maybe you can expand on that, because you have thoughts about
this. I mean, we talked yesterday about the ways in which this was very much included and incorporated into a city that was, and a vision of reconstructing the city and rebuilding the infrastructure of the city. And this was seen as an aspect or an element of progress, and an idea of progress, post-war reconstruction, and progress for humanity as a peaceful project. But so it incorporates the city around it, and it becomes part of that urban reconstruction, but at the same time it keeps that modernity at bay. So we have a peace park that then is, as you say, it becomes this peaceful, it has this landscaping around it, and there's undergone a number of beautification infrastructure projects. But then that really becomes cemented in the mid-1990s through World Heritage designation, which incorporates both a core zone, so we are standing in that core zone right now, which is just this area here. It's a dome in the surrounding area, and then a buffer zone, which includes the river, the park.
They actually call it a buffer zone in the discourse.
To buffer modern intrusions and encroachments. So that modernity and that progress of all the high-rise buildings and infrastructure that cities have is kept somewhat at bay. So it's a sort of enclavic space within the city.
Does that also include vistas? I think you mentioned this yesterday.
Yeah,
Does it
so
also include the
sightlines? Is
sight
often,
lines?
yeah. So sightlines have become one of the most charged issues in World Heritage management in the last few years, particularly in places like London. I'm not sure here. There might be height restrictions around. That's often the case. There might be. You can see that we've got some buildings here that are quite high rise, but often what happens with World Heritage is there'll be a very strict regulation over construction of height levels, and the city will be responsible for managing that. So planning regulations often get put in place for that.